I gotta say, when is Minnesota gonna have Prince City Edition uniforms?
They did.
Oh, well, there you go. That's my answer.
Sup, nerds? It's basketball. Welcome to Horse, a basketball podcast about everything except for the wins and losses. My name is Mike Schubert, and I'm joined by my trusted co-host, the everyone doubting them, to them defying all expectations, the Utah Jazz. It's Adam Amawala. Adam, how's it going?
You know, may the Utah Jazz be a model for all of us who have been doubted at any time in our lives. Even if people think you're going to suck, sometimes you don't.
Even if you have been intentionally set up for failure, you too can lead the NBA in record at the time of recording on November 11th, 2022, and be 10-3. 10-3. They're not just good, they're the best team in the NBA in the Western Conference.
You know, at the risk of making an unbelievably early baseball reference, I'm wondering if there's any sort of angels in the outfield scenario in which some dad in Utah was like, all right, son, we'll be a family again when the Jazz win the West.
That's pretty good. Also, shout out to a clip on Instagram that Kelly showed me of a stand-up comedian. I'm forgetting his name, but he pointed out that since the Los Angeles Angels are the Los Angeles Angels baseball team, they are the Angels, which I never really realized. I thought the wackest part of their name is that they became the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim,
right? Which
is a very specific way to say we're in the greater Los Angeles area twice in one name. But to be the Angels, it's pretty silly.
It is pretty funny. In fairness to the film, I believe they were called the California Angels at that time.
Sure.
And I did. Fun fact about me, I once got to interview Danny Glover as part of my college TV station. And I had to be very serious because he was there reading like Langston Hughes poetry for Black History Month. Like it was a very, very serious event. But the entire time in the back of my head, I just wanted to ask if we would be a family again if the Angels won the pennant. I never did it, but you know. I wanted to see if me and JP could all be a family together.
A classic. What a classic film. Anyway, we need to talk about basketball, not 90s baseball film classics starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a tiny little kid.
And Matthew McConaughey as the center fielder. Don't forget about McConaughey.
Wow. What a film. Anyway, let's talk about basketball, and let's get ready to talk about basketball in the Teal Memorial Locker Room, which does have a VHS section, which has classics such as Angels in the Outfield, Rookie of the Year, all those great 90s baseball films.
And Air Bud, of course.
Of course it has Air Bud. It's got the entire Air Bud extended cinematic universe where now I think I saw either a trailer or a poster where it's like Air Bud but Indiana Jones. They got loose with it. They're just like golden retrievers in this movie. It's an Air Bud movie now.
Are there more Air Buds or Land Before Times?
I think Air Buds because they have clearly not stopped making them. And I think Land Before Time, there were like 17 or whatever. Yeah, we're good.
I feel like Air Bud 28 is going to be like a golden retriever curling.
Air Bud gets into crypto.
Oh, so Jesus Christ.
You know who is not into crypto?
Hopefully Teal and our patrons.
Yes, we hope that is the case just financially, because even as we record this, FTX, which is another crypto thing, just absolutely tanked. And the Miami Heat's arena is the FTX arena. I wonder how long it will be before they have to rename it. Because at least Crypto.com arena for the Lakers is all of crypto, and maybe some are doing okay, but specifically FTX, I believe, absolutely tanked over this past week.
Wouldn't it be funny if FTX completely went under and then the Heat renamed their stadium to the Staples Center? It's a full-on cycle.
Wait, Staples. They should, look, I know I always went to Staples growing up in New Jersey for all of my office supply needs.
Of course.
It's one of those things. I don't know if you ever had this thing as a kid where you just like weirdly take sides for brands for no reason.
Oh, were you an Office Max hater?
No, for whatever reason, I just thought Staples was cooler. And I don't know if it was the commercials or the name, but I was like, I like Staples and I'm 9. And even though I have no say in it. And I remember like not liking Glad trash bags because their commercials were inherently like dissing other companies, and I just felt like it was needlessly negative. So I was always a Staples fan. This is a great opportunity. Them to swoop in and make a new arena the Staples Center. What incredible branding.
Just saying. Just saying.
It's smart. It's really smart. So, as you were saying, yes, we have a lovely group of producer level patrons who are not weird crypto dudes. Shout out to those patrons, Polly Burridge, who I hung out with again. This time we went to a cricket match. Cricket, wild, in a very good way. Kendra Hadley, Salvatore Testa, Trust the Process, Siobhan Ellsbury, He Sells Seashells, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Long-Suffering Timberwolves Fan, Roast Beef Debris, Kate the Carker, Basketball Slave 2, Michaela Loves Allison, Denver Steam Nuggets, Anna Borgelli, Weird Questions, Steph Curry, Thricely Nicely,
Bangly.
Lobster Bisquet, Hi Trish, Ginger Spurs Boy, Nicole Arsenal, and Something Mean About the Knicks.
And we did get an email from our new patron Lilith confirming that the intention of it was to say something mean about the Knicks, not actually something mean about the Knicks. So I'm very glad that I intuitively thought that was what they were going for. So a lot of fun here.
Very fun, very fun. What is also fun is...
I mean, getting money from sponsors.
It is. And our sponsor for this episode not only is fun in terms of we get some money, which is nice to create this show, but also they do good things for the world. So our sponsor of this episode is Tab for a Cause. If you go to tabforacause.org/horse, you can install Tab for a Cause on your browser, and it's very easy to set up, just a couple of clicks. And then every time you open a new tab, you will get a picture of a nice background, very scenic nature. They switch it up usually every day, and you'll have some tiny little ads in the bottom right corner, but those ads raise money, and that money goes to charity. Every time you open a tab, you get a heart, and then you can go to your hearts section and see all the different charities that they support, and then you can give those hearts to charity, and that tells Tab for a Cause what charitable organizations to support. It's really nice. It's really simple. If you're a tab monster like me, you can raise a bunch of money in a really easy way, and you can do it very quickly by going to tabforacause.org/horse.
Love it. All right. Right now, honor system, exactly how many tabs do you have open at this moment?
I have 5 open, but they are all for horse.
Great restraint. I have 12 open and none of them are for horse.
I like to end the day with close. Like, I don't like to have them open overnight.
No dangling participles. I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Now, speaking of dangling participles, we don't want to leave people hanging. We do have an NB Q&A, yes?
We sure do, and great transition as always. This question comes from Mitchell Small, who asks, question for the pod, and I'll read this in a Jerry Seinfeld voice, what's the deal with fouls? All right, this is the question specifically. Hi there, here's a question for the crew that I thought could be fun to get your takes on that's a little more basketball-y and help the less informed fans learn more about the sport. As a fan of many sports, basketball seems to stand apart from the rest with the numerous extended pauses throughout the game due to violations of the rules. In an NBA game, there are usually 40 to 50 stoppages for free throws and sometimes inbounds passes. Meanwhile, hockey can go on for several minutes without any stoppages. Record is like 11 minutes of continuous play, and other sports are generally more punitive for rule violations, hockey penalties, or yardage for football. It just seems like basketball is a game with a set of rules that are supposed to be broken, unlike any other sport. I'd be curious as to the history of fouls, how the basketball world sees fouls, and if you had any suggestions on changing how rules and or fouls work to make the game faster, especially in garbage time. Love the pod, guys. Thanks, Mitchell. Well, thank you, Mitchell, for the great question. We actually recently did, I believe it was my 3-on-3, where I described the weirdest and sexiest foul motions done by a referee. But I guess generally speaking, Mike, my question for you is, how do you feel about how fouls are called in the modern NBA? Obviously, there have been changes and evolutions over the years, including even some this season in terms of fast breaks and that sort of thing. But what is your general overarching feeling on fouls and how they are incorporated in the modern NBA?
I think that they are good because if you are trying to shoot and someone stops you from doing so, it would be unfair if you weren't given the opportunity to recuperate on the lost points with free throws. I think what separates basketball from some other sports as to why there's more fouls and more stoppages is that basketball, compared to other sports, has a really small court with no natural boundaries around it. So hockey, you've got the wall or whatever the border around the rink is, and that keeps the puck in play for the most part. Sometimes it flies over, but it stays in more often than not. Soccer, you have a really, really big field, so the ball doesn't go out of the sidelines as often as stuff can happen in basketball. So I think that's a factor. And then also when you look at basketball versus other sports, basketball is a sport predicated on scoring a lot. Final scores in basketball games nowadays are, 115 to 120. And with twos and threes, you're looking at 50 made baskets per team per game. That's just a lot of attempts. A team would shoot, even if they shot 50%, say each team shoots 100 shots a game. There's lots of attempts. And for other sports, soccer, you don't have that many tries on goal. Same thing with hockey. So I feel like it's a smaller court. There's more times where you're trying to score. So there's more times where the defense is going to try to stop you from scoring. And thus there's a higher chance of infractions. So I do agree that sometimes the amount of stoppages in basketball can be frustrating, but my stoppage frustrations are more along the lines of like the end of the games or when you get commercials into the mix. I feel like they do a good job of like keeping the flow going. But yeah, it does stop more than a lot of other sports.
Yeah, I think that's all very well said. I think if anything, what bothers me at the end of games is when a team is down by like 8 points with 15 seconds left and they're still fouling intentionally. Like just let the clock run out at this point. I'm actually not a fan of the fact that people just don't shoot for like the last minute of a blowout and they just let the clock run out and have 24-second violations. I think that's really weird. But anyway, not to get too far from the whole foul question. Basically, in terms of the history of fouls, or at least how they've evolved over the years, it's usually a reflection of what needs to change within the game. So I've been reading the book that Mike so kindly let me borrow, Blood in the Garden, The Flagrant History of the 1990s New York Knicks, written by Chris Herring, former guest. It's a great book, but in it, he talks about how when the hand check was introduced, that was, in a lot of people's opinion, a fairly direct response to the way the Knicks played basketball, which was incredibly physical in a way that was some people thought damaging to the game and could potentially risk major injuries to players. So the hand check was incorporated in the 1990s. And basically what that meant was you used to be able to like have your hand on someone's hips to control where they were moving with the ball. That became illegal. And I think for the most part, anytime you see a rule change like that, even if it's minute, something like we've seen this year, where now you can't just stop a fast break, you get penalized for that. I think it's all in the spirit of keeping the game moving, keeping it flowing so that we don't have the perception of the game like Mitchell is describing, where it's like, why does it stop so much? Why is it so slow? It's slowing down the momentum of the game. So it's always an evolution. And I think we haven't seen anything incredibly major other than maybe the clear path foul in the last decade or so. But I have no doubt that things will continue to change as the game evolves. And I think that's good.
Yeah, I think they introduce fouls and rule changes in general when either safety is at stake or pace of play and keeping things moving or just things being uninteresting to watch are at stake. The recent ones I can think of is them not being okay with people doing what Chris Paul was doing for a little bit in like the early 2010s, where if someone was doing an intentional foul to stop the clock or whatever, and then he would just throw up a shot from full court, technically he's shooting. They made a rule that was basically like, nah, that doesn't count. And then, like you said, with a clear path foul, they have already introduced the clear path foul, which is if someone is going to the basket and no one's in front of them and you foul them, that is a technical foul. And then also something earlier introduces like, technical fouls and flagrant fouls for being too aggressive and making non-basketball moves where it seems like you're just hitting a guy to hurt a guy, or unnecessary roughness, to use a football term. And now the thing you just talked about where people were not doing clear path fouls, but pretty similar, which was if it seemed like a fast break was going to happen, just try to stop a guy. And they have cracked down on that too. So they're trying to keep people safe. They're trying to keep the game moving. And every now and then they'll tweak the rules to do so. And that's how fouls and rule changes evolve over time.
Indeed. But thank you again, Mitchell, for sending us your question. For anybody else who would like to send us a question, feel free to shoot us an email or reach out to us in some way, and we will add it to the list.
Mm-hmm. Before we head on over to Full Court Press, get out like the news, do you have anything to plug in the Adam Mamawala world?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. That's very nice of you. I guess the main thing that I will plug is that for anyone who lives in New York or the New York area, I'm going to be headlining Stand Up New York on Tuesday, December 20th. Sadly, I believe you will be out of town in Texas. But for anyone who is around and would like to come out to a show, that would be a great one to come to. I also have some other dates coming up next year in places such as Colorado and I don't know, a few other spots. But in any case, thank you for asking. And that's the main thing to plug. What about you?
If you live in New Zealand, I should be doing some shows there as long as everything gets approved. I have visa approval already now. I just need the venues to confirm, but I should be doing a show in Christchurch in early December, and then I should be doing a show in Auckland in mid to late December. So just keep your eyes and ears peeled. Follow me on social media, but should be doing like a joint Potterless and the Newest Olympian show in New Zealand. I think by the time this episode goes live, the Melbourne shows on November 23rd and 24th will already have happened. But if you're in the area, I'm here and I'm doing shows.
Very cool. And speaking of social media, I can't believe I didn't mention this. After years of being incredibly stubborn, I'm finally on TikTok. So if you want to follow me on TikTok, I'm at the moment, if I'm being honest, I'm just kind of reposting things from Instagram, and then at some point it's going to catch up. But anyway, if you want to follow me on TikTok, it's at Adam Mamawala, and I've started posting YouTube Shorts because that seems to be a thing. So it's Mamawala Comedy on YouTube. But with all of the plugs out of the way, shall we get into Full Court Press? Get it like the news?
Let's do it. There is some news that is less fun, so let's get that out of the way first, and then we can end on a goofy little thing. But there is an update in the Brittany Griner situation. It is not a happy one. Basically, over the past couple of days, there were developments in that the Russian government, or whoever's in charge of all this, decided that Brittany Griner was going to go to a penal colony to serve, I believe, her 9-year sentence. And what was worse about an already bad situation is that they transferred her to the penal colony, I think, a couple of days prior than she was supposed to, without alerting her legal team. So they didn't know that she was getting transferred to that until she was already there. Obviously, her legal team is trying to argue that this is unjust. Even the American government is trying to get involved. The White House continues to condemn this, saying that she's unjustly held there. So it just gets sadder, and hopefully something can be done, and we'll just have to see how it goes. But obviously our thoughts and prayers are with Brittany Griner and her family and the whole WNBA, and we just hope that this can all get resolved as soon as possible, because obviously this is just all terrible and unnecessary. And even just like reading some of the details, like the amount of hashish oil that she had on her person is so much smaller than what warrants an arrest in Russia. And then the standard term is only supposed to be like a year or two, and they made it 9. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, even for the people who, for whatever reason, have this odd opinion of like, well, it's justice and it is what it is, like she did something wrong. Even in a scenario where everything is exactly as the Russian government says it was, the amount of hashish oil that she had on her is absolutely not warranting of the punishment here. And there are direct examples of other Americans who have been caught with far more drugs on them, who either weren't punished at all or were released after like a very brief stay in prison. So it's fairly obvious here that this is for political reasons, and it's really sad and unfortunate that Brittany Griner is caught up in the middle of it. And frankly, I hope no one ever plays basketball in Russia again from an American standpoint, because why the hell would you?
Right. I don't see that happening, at least with like any WNBA players, and hopefully nobody does, because it's just bad and it's just terrible, and it would just be a huge risk.
Yeah.
So let's move on to another thing that is, I guess, kind of happy. It's more of like, yay, you didn't do the worst possible thing. The Brooklyn Nets did not hire Ime Udoka. They ended up sticking with their interim head coach, but making him a full-time head coach, Jacques Vaughn, who is a solid coach. I know players like him. He's been on a couple of different teams. He does actually do a cool thing for the league where, by being a head coach, and he's a black man, now 17 out of the 30 coaches in the NBA are black, and that is the highest percentage that has ever existed in the league.
I would say that I not only love that fact, but also I would love to see that number increase in terms of GMs and owners.
Yes, definitely want to see that in more front offices. I do think it's getting better. Also, let's get some women in the mix, maybe.
Yeah.
Obviously, Becky Hammond proved she's a good coach. She just won the WNBA championship in her first year coaching. So,
yeah,
you know, there's definitely doors open for that. But no, we're seeing more WNBA players as well get in the mix. Like Swin Cash, I think, is an advisor to the Denver Nuggets. So let's do it. Open those doors.
Yeah.
Get it in. Make it not look so homogenous of old white dudes.
Now, I don't know if you heard this, but I believe the Brooklyn Nets actually made this decision after listening to our last episode of Horse, where you did a 3-on-3 about the best and worst interim coaches. And they did not want to end up on that list of teams to have treated an interim coach the worst. So there you go.
There we go. There we go. It is funny. There was some sort of reporting that basically said, after hearing lots of negative feedback of the Nets trying to potentially hire someone with very credible workplace relationship / unwanted advances.
How could they have been surprised by that?
I just, it's so silly. But yeah, they're basically like, oh, because of all the negative feedback, we decided not to do it, among other reasons. Yeah, maybe the among other reasons is the stuff Ime Udoka did. So they didn't do the worst thing, which is nice. And for anyone that is looking to get caught up on the whole situation, I did add more context to our last full court press on Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/horsehoops, you can listen to that for free, talking about things such as Kyrie actually getting suspended and the Nets actually kind of taking his stuff a little more seriously. So there's more updates about that there. At this point in time on November 11th, we don't really know what's going on with Kyrie. He's not with the team. He has his list of objectives he's supposed to complete. He released a more formal apology about the anti-Semitism, but still not like a super great one. But he did actually say he was sorry, which is a step up. But that's what's going on there. We'll see. Obviously, there will be some sort of development before our next episode. Now, let's end Full Court Press on a funny, silly, goofy note, because there's some goofy things that happen in the NBA sometimes, and people make mistakes in all sorts of different ways. If you ever want a good laugh, the TNT crew does Shacked in a Fool on a weekly basis, and they usually put them on YouTube, where you can just watch basically like bloopers of NBA players from the past week of sports, and they show a top 5, and all 4 of the dudes roast the guys, and it's very funny. But one that just happened recently was with the Timberwolves, who are unfortunately off to not a great start. Our selection of putting them high in the drama draft was correct, because they've traded a lot for Rudy Gobert, and they're not playing much better than they did last season / worse. So that's interesting. But they had a situation where D'Angelo Russell was supposed to check in to the game to substitute in for someone during free throws, and he didn't do it. So the Suns ran 4-on-5 against the Timberwolves for a full play. And that doesn't go particularly well when you have the 4. And they got scored on, and it was embarrassing, and it was just silly. And we'll put a link to the play on the episode page at horsehoops.com.
It would have been much funnier if the Suns didn't score and then the Timberwolves did with a 4-on-5 situation. Much like one of your former that actually happened about the college game, where it was like, 3-on-5 for the last 5-10 minutes of the game?
3-on-5 due to ejections and injuries. Yeah.
Wild.
So it was silly and goofy. And also from that game, Devin Booker of the Suns angrily yelled at the Timberwolves that we play team basketball, we share the ball, which is just such an interesting trash talk to be like, we're good coworkers. Ah!
Love it.
So with that complete, we can now move on. And why don't you give us a little 3-on-3, Adam?
I certainly will.
1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. 3-on-3.
Now, today is my turn to do a 3-on-3, and sometimes things just fall right into your lap, because earlier today, the NBA officially released its City Edition jerseys for this season.
Let's go.
And with that, I proudly present the 3 best and worst City Edition jerseys, and buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. We will post a link to the visuals for all of these, and please bear in mind that Mike and I are both colorblind, so it is genuinely a challenge to describe these in some cases, but I'm doing my best. Let's start with the worst and end with the best. And Mike, I'm going to send you a link right now so you can follow along with me. Here we go.
I love this. I love doing this sort of thing. We've ranked jerseys in the past. Maybe we'll rank all the other ones potentially as a bonus thing. But that's the one thing of this only being audio is I love talking about NBA jerseys a lot.
Totally. Well, it's always a fun challenge to be like, how best can I describe this for people who are mostly listening to this via audio medium? So let's see how I do. Let's start with the 3rd worst jersey, which, is in my totally subjective, possibly incorrect opinion. But as far as I'm concerned, it belongs to the Charlotte Hornets. Now, it's fitting that the name they show with this jersey is Gordon Hayward, because these jerseys might be as bad as his haircut. The Hornets, historically, have always had some of the cooler uniforms in basketball, if for no other reason than the fact that their color scheme is awesome. Now, I'm really dating myself with this reference, but as a kid who grew up in the 90s, when starter jackets were all the rage, one of, if not the most iconic ones, was the Charlotte Hornets one, due to the catchy teal, shout out to teal, coloring. When I think Hornets, I think of the early 90s Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson teams with teal jerseys and white pinstripes. These City Edition jerseys are incredibly bland and drab, which is a huge departure from how fun their unis could and should be. As I see it, the City Edition is a golden opportunity for teams to take some swings in terms of colors and creativity. Any jersey in which the main color is brown, black, or dark gray just feels like a waste. All that to say, these Hornets jerseys are black with green and gold pinstripes, with a large CLT in block lettering and the number beneath it. In fairness, the main point of these City Edition jerseys is to celebrate the history and culture of that particular city, but the backstory here is so uninteresting that it actually makes the jerseys even worse somehow. Evidently, the coloring is an homage to Charlotte having been the home to the first U.S. branch mint. Okay.
Cool.
And the choice of CLT is a nod to the city's airport code. So cool.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Great. Like, what are we even doing? Like, should the Knicks wear a jersey that has LGA on the front to honor LaGuardia Airport? In fairness, though, and in honor of our producer-level patron Lilith, a.k.a. Something Mean About the Knicks, I would say that the Knicks' level of play over the past few decades could best be described as LaGuardia Airport quality, but much like the airport, they are improving, so I'll give you that.
You want to talk about a COVID glow up. During COVID, when they could do lots of construction, LaGuardia went from worst airport to my favorite airport of the three.
It still has areas that feel like Port Authority, but largely it has improved quite a bit, and it is pretty impressive. So I hope for you that the Knicks do the same, and I think they're already well on their way.
Mm-hmm. Can we address the issue here that might be obvious based on the letters you were saying? But when I opened this document you sent, which has an image of all 30 jerseys, the first thing that I saw was a jersey with a big CLT. From afar, I mean, that's...
Are you saying it looks like cult, or are you saying it looks like an even more offensive word?
No, I'm saying it looks like
a part of the female anatomy.
Exactly. One that boys have a struggle to find sometimes.
Hey, speak for yourself. Anyway.
Yeah. Oh, I'm speaking for other people.
That's so funny, because when you first said that, I thought you meant cult, like it was some sort of like, reference to that, which also would not be great, probably.
No, it wouldn't. But yeah, I mean, especially because since it does have vertical pinstripes of different colors, the letters are in gold, and there's a gold pinstripe vertically between the L and the T. Just a very interesting placement.
So you found it after all. All right, let's move on. All right. Okay, this is the dirtiest episode of Horse we've ever done. All right. The second worst jersey belongs to the Orlando Magic, another team who I associate with fun, iconic 90s uniforms. Much like the same era of basketball I referenced in my Charlotte Hornets breakdown, when I think Magic, I think about those Shaq and Penny Hardaway teams of the 90s with their blue jerseys, black pinstripes, and the iconic Magic logo with the star in place of the letter A. These jerseys are either dark gray or black. Honestly, hard to tell. Let's go with charcoal, with Orlando and the jersey number on the front in white lettering. The only thing even remotely interesting about these jerseys is a very fine pattern in a diamond shape, but overall, nothing pops on these jerseys whatsoever. But hey, what's the backstory? Great question, and thanks so much for asking. There's no good backstory. According to the main article I referenced for this 3-on-3 written by Chris, I don't know if it's Kramer or Creamer, on a site called sportslogos.net, the inspiration for these jerseys was that the coloring is supposed to represent the team putting on armor to get ready for battle. Like magicians do. What the hell? I don't understand it.
Yeah, I have to say that the pressure that Nike has put on the teams is kind of tough, because with these city jerseys, they release them every year, and I think there is a maximum amount of times that you can reissue the same jersey as a city jersey. I think like twice, and then you have to make a new one. So I feel like some teams are running out of ideas, but unfortunately, you don't have teams just doing wacky, wild jerseys. You have teams kind of going in the opposite direction and just doing like, oh, well, we did this jersey. What if we just made it all black or whatever? Yeah, the only thing that they've done is put like kind of a cool looking font for Orlando, but it doesn't really feel Orlando-ish.
Right.
Like, it feels like they're going for like the similar font that the Clippers have to try to be like downtown LA. I don't understand it. You're Orlando. Like, go big and goofy with theme parks and stuff. Just keep making jerseys modeled after different theme parks.
Yeah.
Also, their jersey sponsor was Disney. So, like, just get some funky Disney designs in there.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, what better excuse could there be to be goofy? And they completely whiffed on it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But that brings us to our worst jersey, a jersey so hideous that it would make Ed Hardy blush. Congratulations to your defending champion Golden State Warriors and the new champions of worst jersey I have ever seen, because, oh my God, these are awful. Now, let me begin by saying that the backstory of these jerseys is actually pretty cool and a great thing to promote. To directly quote the article I referenced, quote, "This jersey was designed by Bay Area artist Human, spelled Hueman, okay, who created a tribute to the Warrior women, celebrating the strong women that have played a role in the team's and city's success. The various design elements of this jersey were meant to represent femininity, friendship, optimism, and diversity." Awesome, love it, all about it, that's great. However, these jerseys are atrocious. Now, the logo itself is reasonably cool.
Yeah, the logo is really cool.
The logo I like. It's basically a circle with a drawing of a flower and little points around it like the sun. No issue with that. But the main feature of the jersey is an enormous photo of a flower that essentially takes up the entire bottom part of the jersey. It looks like that Three Wolf Moon shirt. Like there's a bunch of stuff kind of like overlaid. Shout out to the author of Blood in the Garden and former guest Chris Herring, who I've already referenced, who tweeted rather accurately, quote, "What our insides look like when we've really got to use the bathroom, I imagine." It's really, really bad, and it sucks that people are going to clown on this jersey when it's promoting something great. But talk about a swing and a miss, at least for me. In terms of women's empowerment, this jersey is about as effective as Wonder Woman 1984. If you didn't see it, just know that it was really bad.
Don't. It's so bad. The thing is, I am more pro a big swing and a miss like this than the previous one where we just didn't try.
I respect the effort, for sure.
Yeah, A for effort, not great execution. But you're right, the logo itself is really cool. If they did this whole jersey, except instead of the weird big flower thing, if it was just black or even just like a gradient of black to yellow,
right,
or black to gold, however they're qualifying it, this would be really cool because that font they've used for Warriors is cool. The little artistic rose they have is cool. The sun thing is cool. But yeah, it's just weird to see because it's just a photo of a rose. Like it's a photorealistic rose, but then altered to be yellow, so it looks more unnatural. I think the problem is, one, seeing something photorealistic on a jersey is weird as opposed to like a design. And also, it from far away is not going to look like a rose. Like when you had the small one, I saw that it had some sort of effect, but it looked like almost like lava, or honestly, Chris Herring's description is pretty accurate. Like I couldn't tell if it was a rose design for the small preview image or if it was just like wrinkly. So it's a tough look there. And then also it doesn't fully wrap around the side, and it doesn't actually like come across a harsh border. So it just kind of like stops where the side is black. So it just like looks like it was cropped. I like the attempt. I like that they actually tried. That being said, it's weird looking.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. It is certainly the biggest swing, but I feel like it's also the biggest miss, and that kind of comes with the territory if you're going to go for something pretty unique. So with that, we can move on to my 3 favorite jerseys, and you'll be happy to know that my homerism did not factor into this decision enough to include my beloved Bulls.
Yeah, theirs is kind of boring.
City Edition jerseys. Yeah, they're like fine, but nothing to write home about, which is kind of like the team so far this year. Figured if I was going to throw some shade at the Knicks, it was only right to throw some back at the Bulls. But anyway, at number 3 on our list, we have the Dallas Mavericks, whose jersey aesthetic can be best described as Starsky and Hutch vibes. This might be my favorite lettering of any jersey of the 30, and it has 1970s vibes written all over it. The coloring is similar to the Mavs standard uniforms, featuring a primary color of blue with white and green accent colors. The font is really the star of the show, though, with Dallas written across the front in white letters, thin green lines running through the inside of them with triple shadowed accent colors. This extends to numbers as well, which gives the lettering somewhat of a 3D effect, which is really cool. I'm also a huge fan of the white accented V-neck and the green and white stripes going down the sides. It looks very much like something out of the ABA or the heavily ABA-inspired Will Ferrell film Semi-Pro. 1970s style is really having a renaissance right now, and I am a total sucker for it, landing this jersey firmly in the top 3. What are your impressions of it?
I think these jerseys are great. The coloring is fun. It's a little bit of a lighter blue than what they've used, so it is more of an homage to their old school logo, which was very much like royal blue and bright green. But yeah, font's really cool, nice and simple. I like the 3D effect on it. I've always enjoyed that kind of effect. I think it's cool.
Yeah, I'm a fan. All right, so at number 2, I have to go with a team whose jerseys are typically either incredibly boring or incredibly awesome. In this case, they really nailed it, so congratulations to Ginger Spurs Boys San Antonio squad.
Yes.
As we have referenced many times on the pod, Mike and I are huge fans of the Spurs 1990s style Fiesta coloring, and this City Edition jersey does not disappoint in that regard. Even better, this jersey pays tribute to the 1996 All-Star Game jerseys, a game that has always had a special place in my heart because it occurred during Michael Jordan's first full season back, during which the 72-10 regular season Bulls steamrolled to a championship. Now, in fact, just to humor me, Mike, what do you think the Bulls' record was at the All-Star break that year? They had played 47 games, for reference.
46 games. I'm going to say 42
47
and 4.
games, 47.
47. I'm going to say 43 and 4.
You're very close. They were 42-5, which was actually disappointing because they had lost 2 of 3 games heading into the break after starting a blistering 41-3.
Wild.
Truly outrageous, and looks like I still figured out a way to be a shameless Bulls homer after all. Anyway, back to the jersey. We'll post some photos of what those 1996 All-Star Game jerseys looked like. But this year's City Edition jerseys are that beautiful turquoise coloring with Fiesta-inspired accent colors, which really makes the jersey pop. More specifically, the right sleeve is outlined in orange, the left sleeve is outlined in pink, and the neck is outlined in black, which is a really cool effect. Then, down either side of the jersey is a thick black line with zigzagging white accents and little orange and pink triangles. It is as iconically 90s as the Mavs jersey is 70s, and I absolutely freaking love it. It looks like an Arizona iced tea can, and it's the coolest thing.
It's so good. This is so good. Every time the Spurs continue to bring more Fiesta stuff into these City jerseys, I just get more and more hopeful that they will finally rebrand and go full Fiesta. We need them to go full Fiesta. I could see them doing that. You know, they're bottoming out now. They're trying to tank. Pop is on his last legs as the coach. Let's go full rebrand, ditch the gray, go full Fiesta. Please, Spurs, please, you're so close. You can do it.
Never go full rebrand. That's a reference to Tropic Thunder. I don't know if you caught it, but I kept it in anyway.
I did. Oh, don't worry. I was in high school when the movie came out, so I saw it and quoted it all the time.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be released now. Maybe it shouldn't. Anyway, let's go ahead to the number 1 on this list. I have to give it to the team who has, in my humble opinion, consistently had the best alternate jerseys in basketball over the past decade, the Miami Heat.
Oh.
And yes, Heat is written in all caps, no cap.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this might stir up some controversy because Miami wasn't super creative here, but the jerseys are still cool enough that I don't even care. Essentially, they just took last year's City Edition jerseys and made them white, but the lettering is my favorite part. Described as ransom note lettering, it means that each of the letters in Miami is a different font and color. Even the jersey numbers are different colors for jerseys that have multiple numbers. The example they use here is Jimmy Butler, who wears number 22. Here's the even cooler part. These are snowflake jerseys, and I mean that in more ways than one. Not only are they white, but the fonts for each jersey are different for each player. So according to the Heat, there are 12,656 possible combinations of designs for this one jersey style. Pretty awesome stuff. I wonder if they would let you customize exactly which fonts and colors you would want on your own jersey on the NBA store.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, you're right. On the NBA store, I was going to say the players definitely get to choose what
Right.
they have, which I think is the coolest part of these jerseys.
That's very cool. If they don't have that as something that's available for fans to do, they absolutely should, because I feel like it wouldn't be that hard. I'm sure they're already charging an arm and a leg for them. But yeah, that landed at number 1 on my list. So there you have it, folks. The 3 best and worst 2022-2023 NBA City Edition jerseys. And make sure to check out the expanded 5-on-5. My hope is that by the time you listen to this, it will already be up on the Patreon at patreon.com/horsehoops. But if it is not, rest assured that it will be up very shortly, along with one extra 5-on-5 that I still need to upload. So there it is.
Yeah, very great rankings. Love it. And a final note about the Miami jersey is that the letters on the front where they switch it up aren't just like random letters. They're all from previous Miami Heat jerseys,
yes.
which is super duper cool.
Love it.
All right, so now let's move on to That Actually Happened, where it stars someone that you have, I would say, probably a positive relationship. Carlos Boozer, jazz legend, Bulls kind of legend.
I sure do. I remember Stacey King saying, "It's time for the booze cruise, baby. It's time for the booze cruise."
So Carlos Boozer is a very interesting basketball player in that he was pretty good, had a good career, had some very silly, goofy moments, had the infamous shoe polish head game and the infamous game where he accidentally punched a ref in between the legs while celebrating a made basket. And he's always been a good sport about this kind of stuff. And he's a very funny storyteller. And that's what led me to choosing this for That Actually Happened. So, Adam, have you ever heard the story about how Carlos Boozer rented his house to Prince?
No, but I can't wait to hear it.
So shout out to Haley Hastings, longtime listener of the show, who is a huge Utah Jazz fan. I got to check in with Haley. She's probably loving life right now with how surprisingly good the Jazz are. But Haley posted this onto the horse section of the Discord that I have for the Newest Olympian, where sometimes people will share funny basketball type things. And Haley posted this. I'd never heard of it before and pocketed it for a future That Actually Happened. And I feel like now is the time because it's silly and goofy and ridiculous. So I will be putting links to various iterations of this story on the episode page at horsehoops.com, because in recent years, Carlos Boozer has told this story on a lot of different platforms, podcasts, and ESPN appearances and the Dan Patrick Show. And basically, it's funny every time, but there's little different tweaks every single time. So I kind of composited all of the best elements from these different versions, and it's just so good. Now, I'm going to be using one story as the main sort of reference point because they transcribed the entire interview, which just makes it nice and easier. And I also feel like it was the wildest description of it. I feel like he's gotten better at telling the story over time. But here is, mostly in Carlos Boozer's words, the story of how Prince rented his house.
I'm really hoping it has some reference to Prince being good at basketball, as they talk about on Chappelle's show, but I guess we'll see.
We'll see, but I would say do get your hopes up. So here's what Carlos Boozer says, quote, I bought a house in Bel Air in the Los Angeles area of California. It was actually right before I came to the Jazz for training camp. So I bought a crib out there, like 18,000 square feet. It was a lot of house. We just got to decorating and probably spent maybe like 3 or 4 days in the house at the time, which means me and my ex-wife Cece. So just me, and we didn't even have kids yet. First of all, I bought the crib and I moved here to Utah. Come in here for the season, and my realtor in LA, Roxanne, kept hitting me up saying, quote, someone wants to rent your house. And I was like, no, I ain't even spend no time in my house. So he basically has bought a new house and he hadn't even lived there for a month. But you'll see a lot of players get homes in cities that they want to live in, not necessarily where their team is. So he's got a home in LA, but he's about to start the season with the Jazz, gets this offer, isn't necessarily feeling it though, because he hasn't even lived in this house for a month.
So basically, yeah, just to recap, he's telling his realtor Roxanne that she does have to put on the red light.
Exactly. Now, an additional detail from a different version of Carlos Boozer telling the story, he said that he bought it off of a guy at Interscope Records who was going through a divorce, so quote, I got it on a pretty good deal.
Is it Jimmy Iovine?
I don't know. He just said a guy. Didn't exactly say. Now, that pretty good deal, we'll get into the price later, but it is roughly $8.5 million. So,
I mean, that's a steal.
A good deal.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a steal. Back to the story. And then she, Roxanne, told me that he's willing to pay $95,000 a month. And I was like, oh, okay. Basically thinking I'm going to be in Utah for the next 8 months or so. So that's a pretty good source of passive income. So Boozer flies out to LA because they have to do all the paperwork. He doesn't know who this person is until they get out of the limo. And then when they get out of the limo, Carlos Boozer says about this, quote, I didn't know who it was until he got out of the car. And I was looking at Roxanne and I said, yo, that's Prince, man. And she was like, yeah.
I feel like she could have included that unless there was some reason that she wasn't supposed to.
I feel like she probably should have, but I guess maybe she thought, hey, getting paid $95,000 a month is enough of a sell. You don't need to know that it's also Prince.
Feels like a fairly large detail to have omitted.
Anyway, Carlos about this meeting says, quote, we walked around the house for maybe like an hour, showed him some of the intricacies of the house. Love that he used this term. Intricacies of the house. On the rooftop, it was like a tanning deck, but it also had a tennis court that I turned into a basketball court, and he's a huge basketball fan. And in another version, he noted specifically that Prince has a very nice jump shot.
Good.
Prince always was this huge Minnesota Timberwolves fan, huge basketball guy, huge Minnesota Lynx fan. He grew up in Minnesota, and apparently him and Carlos Boozer talked about Kevin Garnett for a very long time because Prince grew up a Kevin Garnett fan. Boozer played a lot against Kevin Garnett, and it was one of his toughest matchups, and he's an NBA legend. So they're on the roof, they're talking about basketball and Kevin Garnett. Things are going great, and then basically they agree to all the terms, and the plan is for Prince to rent this house from Boozer for a full year.
By the way, I believe Prince was the point guard for his high school basketball team in Minnesota.
I would not be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised.
I would be surprised if he had been the center. He was a very small man.
Exactly. Now, Carlos Boozer, during that season, had hamstring issues. He said he tore his hamstring like 4 or 5 times that year. So he wanted to fly back to LA to seek treatment from a very good physical therapist who he calls out by name, Judy Cito, and he calls her out by name in every single one of these retellings of the story. I got to give credit to Booze. He always shouts out his realtor and his physical therapist when he tells these stories by name. You love to see someone giving credit where credit is due. So I want to give my credit to Carlos Boozer for shouting out these folks. So he's going to LA to see this particular physical therapist, and he figures, I'm in the LA area. How about I swing by the house just to check in with my new friend Prince and make sure everything's okay with the house. So in one of the versions of the story, Boozer says, quote, I hit up P. So now he's on a first letter basis with Prince. I hit up P. I'm like, P, I'm about to come by the house. Just check it out. If you need anything, let me know. But he doesn't get a return call from Prince, but he still decides that he's going to check out the house anyway. So he pulls up to the house, and he's confused because normally on the house, the gates, at least when he left, I don't know if he installed them or if they were already there, but there were 2 golden lions on the gate. But when he gets to his house, the 2 golden lions on the gate have been replaced by a symbol that he doesn't recognize. So Prince put the Prince symbol on the gate to the house. Boozer said he even had to drive down the street and double check that it was the right house because he'd only been there for a month. He didn't exactly know it. Some time had passed and he went back and it's a different gate, but then he did confirm, this is my house. What is going on?
That's so funny. I assume it was purple. Must have been purple.
They said the gate was black, which at least goes on with the purple and black scheme, so that's okay. Don't worry, purple's going to come into play.
Can't wait.
So he puts in his code to open the gate. The code has not changed, which I found to be the most surprising thing. First off, the Prince wouldn't change it at all. But second, the Prince wouldn't do something where you have to like play a tune on a keyboard. Like there's some sort of mini keyboard. Or if it was like, oh yeah, the code is you have to sing an A minor note or so. Like I feel like Prince would have some intricate way to get into the house. And I'm surprised that he didn't change the code at all. So he pulls up into the house. He drives up the driveway. And when he gets to the driveway, he notes that there is a purple carpet from what Carlos Boozer keeps calling it, the motorcade area. There's a purple carpet that goes from the driveway to the front of the house, but not just to the front of the house, also up the stairs to the front of the house. And it's not just a purple carpet, it's a purple carpet designed with the Prince symbol all up and down it in a pattern.
Mike, when you and Kelly end up looking for new apartments in New York, are you going to look for some sort of motorcade area?
We'll have to see if that's a thing you can check the box on Street Easy under amenities, in-unit washer dryer, in-unit air conditioning, motorcade area.
I can live without the dishwasher, but I'm really going to need a motorcade area.
There's no motorcade area? Hard pass.
It's going to be a no for me, dog.
I'm out. He goes inside, and apparently every single thing that Carlos Boozer had in this 18,000 square foot house was gone. The carpets were ripped up. All of the furniture was put into storage. All of the art and decorations they had up was completely gone. And here's how he describes it. Quote, there was purple and black carpet, a purple and black bed. I had a weight room, which he turned into a nightclub with a disco ball and a DJ booth, which I thought was pretty cool. Again, Boozer giving credit where credit is due. And specifically in the ESPN version where he told this story, when he describes the DJ booth, he says, quote, he had a DJ booth. Wicca, wicca. So just making sure you knew exactly what was going on here.
I would love if he also gave credit by name to like the guy who installed his carpet. Like that's just his thing. It's just he wants to give everyone their fair credit.
He's just a very gracious man. Boozer continues, quote, he had a massage parlor in one room. He transformed the entire house so it looked like his, and I'm not used to this, like I've never rented a house to anybody. Now, some extra details from some other versions of this. He says that in one of the bathrooms, he changed one of the mirrors to a purple heart-shaped mirror. And that bed he talked about before being purple and black, it was also a heart-shaped bed. And one of the other guest rooms, so previously mentioned, one turned into a massage parlor, another was turned into a hair salon.
Sure.
Boozer also noted that Prince had put poster-sized photos of himself, of Prince, throughout the entire house, and there was a picture of Prince in every single room.
Unbelievable. Also, just to go back real quick, was the hair salon converted from Carlos Boozer's shoe polish salon?
I gotta say, and we'll put a link to it, but he also had a story where he talked about what went wrong with the infamous shoe polish head game, and it's such a delight. We'll put it on the episode page at horsehoops.com. But what this picture in every room thing made me think of, I recently went on a tour of the governor's house in New South Wales, the state where Sydney is in, and it is a rule because of the whole British colonial Commonwealth territory type thing that they have to have a picture of the head of the royalty, so now Charles or whoever it is.
Ew.
They have to have a picture of him in every single room.
Ugh.
So every single room has a little picture of him. So that made me think of this with Prince. Continuing on, Carlos says, quote, "I'm 22, 23. I'm kind of beside myself. So I'm calling and calling. It's the number that I thought. I'm like, did he change the number on me? Like it's an ex-girlfriend thing going on right now." Because it's drawing out, Boozer calls him for like 1 to 2 months with no response. He's now in talks with his lawyer, and his lawyer says, "Hey, if you want to sue Prince, we can get the paperwork together and sue him today if you want." And about this, Boozer said, quote, "Nobody really wants to sue Prince. I'm getting legal advice from someone that's like, let's sue Prince." And I'm like, relax, hold on. So anyway, Boozer does eventually hear from Prince. Prince is on tour in Asia. About a month or so later, he does call Carlos Boozer at 3 a.m, and Prince clarifies he just wanted to make the house look like his when people come over. Prince says, "Booze, don't worry, I've got you." That is what Carlos Boozer says in most of the stories, but in one of them, he said, "Los, don't worry, I've got you." So I want to know which nickname, if any, Prince is referring to Carlos Boozer as. Is it Booze? Is it Los? Is it something else?
Either way, Los or Booze was like, you know what? I'm happy to hear that, P.
Yeah, exactly. So Prince assures him, "Just wanted to make the house look like mine for when people came over. When I move out, it'll look like I was never there." And just to put Carlos Boozer at ease, Prince immediately wires him $500,000 just to kind of chill the situation.
I don't understand. If you have as much money as Prince, why not just buy a house in LA and make it look the way you want? Why are you renting a house?
Because I guess you have so much money that you can do this and it's fun. Maybe it's in a particular part of town. Maybe you really liked the listing. I have no idea. But if you have $500,000 of just give to someone I barely know as ease my mind money, you've got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Boozer continues. So long story short, he rents out my crib for a year, 95 grand a month. Then he put everything, 18,000 square feet of the house, into storage, redecorated the entire house down to the forks, wires me $500,000 just to ease my mind. And when I got there at the end of his lease, it was like he was never there. All of the furniture was back. Everything was in its place. It was like Prince was never there. That's how much money Prince had.
Incredible.
Truly ridiculous.
I mean, I guess no harm done ultimately, but I would think it would be pretty jarring if you walked into your house and everything was different.
Right. Now, it's actually okay that this all happened because Carlos Boozer said that he bought it at $8.6 million and he didn't want to stay there after all of this. I don't know why you wouldn't want to stay there after this, but I think the reason why is what Carlos Boozer later revealed is that they were able to put the house back on the market and use the fact that Prince lived there for a year as a selling point. So they bought it at 8.6 million and sold it at 12.4 million a year later.
Plus that extra 500K.
Exactly. Now there is a bit of an inconsistency because in one of the stories, Carlos says he bought it for 8.4 million and sold it for 12.3 million, but you know, about the same regardless.
I mean, this guy's all over the place. Are you Booze? Are you Los? Was it 12.3? Was it 12.4? Nothing you say is credible anymore.
But basically, in addition to the 500K, just to put his mind at ease, he made a $4 million profit for this whole endeavor. And it's a wild story. And he's been able to tell it on many different platforms. And it's funny every single time. I watched maybe 5 or 6 versions of him telling the story, and it hit every single time. Can't recommend it enough. We'll link to all of them. And that is the story of how Prince rented Carlos Boozer's house in the most Prince way possible. And that actually happened.
That's so great. Wow. I can't believe I've never heard that story, especially given how many times Boozer apparently has talked about it.
Same. On one of the interviews with the Dan Patrick Show, Dan Patrick prefaced it with, "I know you've told the story so many times, but you have to tell it again." And I had never heard of it before.
Wow. That's a great one. Mm-hmm. I gotta say, when is Minnesota gonna have Prince City Edition uniforms?
They did.
Oh, well, there you go. That's my answer.
The first time they did City Edition jerseys, they were purple rainy. And I believe we ranked them on Horse, and I think we gave them the number 1 or number 2 spot.
Nice.
But they had a purple design and a princey looking font in pink, which was very cool. And yeah, they did that. And then I think they did this similar thing where they did like a white version, either for the playoff jerseys or for the next year of it. I think
That's
the playoff
cool.
ones
Yeah,
were the white alternative.
I have a friend of mine who's a big baseball fan and also a huge Prince fan, and he went to like Prince night at the Minnesota Twins stadium, and they gave out hats that had the Prince symbol, and like it was purple lighting all over the place. It was very cool. I don't really know Prince's body of work, if I'm being honest, but people loved him.
Great musician. Funky movies, huge Minnesota guy, and I love that he didn't feel like he had to put all of his effort into a major city. He grew up in a place that doesn't have as much star power, but really, put his love back into it, and that's really cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Horse. Horse is hosted by Adam Amawala and Mike Schubert. Our editor for this episode was Mike Schubert. The music is by Bettina Campomanes. The art is by Allison Wakeman. The website is by Kelly Beckman Schubert. And the social media is by both of the Horse Boys.
Thank you to our producer-level patrons, Polly Burge, Kendra Hadley, Salvatore Testa, Trust the Process, Siobhan Ellsbury, He Sells Seashells, Don't Go Chasing Taco Falls, Bang, Bang, Long-Suffering Timberwolves fan, Roast Beef Debris, Kate the Conqueror, Basketball is Life 2, Michaela Loves Allison, Denver Steve Nuggets, Anna Borjali, Weird Questions, Steph Curry, Thricely Nicely.
Bangly Bangly.
There you go. Lobster Bisquet, Hi Trish, Ginger Spurs Boy, Nicole Arsenault, and Something Mean About the Knicks. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horse Hoops and on Twitter at Horse_Hoops because
Horse Hoops designed the boring jerseys for the city jerseys. They were on the committee of let's just make everything black/charcoal.
Truly unforgivable stuff. But make sure to go to our website, horsehoops.com, for links to some of the fun stuff we talked about today, including Carlos Boozer talking about that time Prince lived in his house, and all of the photos of the City Edition jerseys.
Mm-hmm. And if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/horsehoops. There's a lot of goodness over there. You can get physical stuff like stickers with thank you notes from us and a jersey, which is very cool. And there's also digital things. Got audio, got video, got text. You get access to all the stuff we've ever posted over the years of making Horse. You get access to it instantly if you head on over to patreon.com/horsehoops. We've also got merch at horsehoops.com/merch. Those include Sup Nerds shirts, as well as digital downloads of past live streams we've done. All good stuff over there. We're going to close this episode out, as we always do, by putting our hands in the middle and saying something on the count of 3. What are we feeling? Give Booze. We could do a whole dat on 3 to shout out Carlos Boozer.
You know what? To honor Carlos Boozer, we have to go with his iconic call every time he grabbed a rebound when he played for the Chicago Bulls, which was, and I quote, "Give me that shit."
I like that. All right, give me that shit on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Give me that shit.
There it is. Get on board the booze cruise, baby.
Toot toot.